Hi, welcome to the Keys to Therapy. On today's episode, we have Rachel Policay talking about her experiences in grad school, her career, and any tips or advice she has for you newbies out here. So, Rachel, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you.
Hey guys, I'm Rachel and I'm an LMFT. So that's one of the many acronyms in our field, but that stands for Licensed Marriage and Family Therapist. And I, like Sam, currently have my own online private practice and it's called Chesapeake Bay Counseling. And I currently work with young adults who are struggling with people pleasing, over functioning, and have high anxiety, and that kind of manifesting in their relationships, whether it's romantic, friendships, or at work. But that's currently what I'm up to.
Hey, okay. Well, let's get to some of the questions. I know people have a lot of different thoughts coming into the field. There's a lot of things we don't know. So, we're definitely going to be as transparent as possible, kind of help these people out because we were there one time in the past too. So,
Not too
all right.
long ago either.
Well, so my first question is what made you want to become a therapist? How'd you get on this path?
I feel like so many different factors went into that, but the seed was actually planted at a very young age in my family.
Hmm.
So my mom was a social worker that specialized in geriatrics. So she worked in nursing homes and would kind of like share her experiences with us growing up. And then my older sister went on to be a medical social worker at some of the local hospitals in this area. I'm in Virginia Beach, so shout out to Centera. That's where she's working. She does that. And so the seed was just planted. I was like exposed to that in my family. Just I'm very similar to my mom and my sister, who Sam has now met my mom. So she knows
Love
like we've
her.
got some similarities. So seed was planted there. And then I definitely chose to water that seed after my first high school psych class.
Hmm.
So I remember being in high school and, like would get up, felt okay about going to school, but no class had really made me feel like I am so excited to go to this class today and like take in all this information until I had my first high school psych class. And
Hmm.
I don't know if it was the teacher or a combination of her and the material, but just like learning about, people, all the different experiments, parts of the brain. I was like, this is great. And I was like, wait, I'm actually looking forward to going to school. What is this?
It's way better than algebra.
Oh, yeah. Like math, what? Just
Yeah.
not my jam. But I was like, take note of this. Like, I'm really into this class. And then upon reflection too, I kind of like you was like looking at my friendships and my various relationships, and I'm like, I'm kind of already informally doing this.
Yeah.
So I think you had said in one of your episodes, like not an informal therapist to my friends, but just like a supporter, a listener, a cheerleader, like someone who was able to like kind of hold multiple perspectives at once. So after reflecting on that and thinking like, well, I really liked this psych class too, and I'm kind of already doing this informally with my friends, why not make this into something like I do for a
Yeah.
career? So here we are, like a few years later, but I've decided to make this into something I do because I really love it.
Well, why LMFT? Because you got a family of social workers, which woohoo, social work.
I know. Hey,
But
yeah.
so why LMFT? What about that path made you want to go there?
I have to admit, like, so really the first reason was the school I chose was in an area I really wanted to be in.
That
So
matters.
I wanted to be in Northern Virginia after graduation. So that was like a pull to the program.
Mhm.
But upon doing more research, so the program I was in was we specialize in working with couples and families. And after learning more about that, I was like, it just makes sense to like do the work in that way. Like, even if you're not working with a couple or a family, like, if you work with one person, it's like you're working with multiple people in the room.
Yeah.
So it's like you've got your client, but they're talking about their romantic relationship or their mom. And it's like you're always working like relationally.
Mhm.
So I am so thankful. My like 20-year-old self really wanted to be in Arlington, Virginia, and have a good time up there because the theory that that program, kind of operated from really fit how I work now and just kind of how I see, things clinically. But that's why I did LMFT. I was like, this just makes sense. Like, I feel like even wounds that are created are typically created relationally, so
Mhm.
with another, and then therefore in most cases like the healing can be done relationally as well. But yeah, that's why I chose it. So I became an LMFT. Very fancy.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense because sometimes as an individual therapist, it's hard because it's almost like, gosh, if I could talk to your mom, if I could talk to this person with
Oh
you,
yeah.
and you may occasionally have like a session with them, but not consistent to really like see some of the dynamics. So that is definitely a pro of that.
Helps you zoom out. Like you said, if you're just getting the one perspective, you're thinking, I don't know if you felt this way, but in certain sessions, you're like, wow, this person really sounds like an asshole, like the partner they're talking about or the parent they're talking about. But it's helpful to like zoom out. And although like you're validating your client's feelings, like knowing they're a part of a larger system
Mhm.
so that, as they say something, their partner is going to have like a reaction to it that's based on kind of their own stuff,
Yeah.
right? So it kind of helps like humanize the other person they're talking about to have that experience like working with a ton of couples and families. And actually, when you get in the room, like, with multiple people, you typically can really understand everyone's perspective. Like it
Yeah.
all makes sense.
Within a
Um,
few minutes, you see the dynamics and you're like,
oh,
oh, and it's like puzzle pieces coming together.
yeah. Oh, yeah. It comes together very quickly.
Yeah.
It pops off rather quickly too.
Yeah, I've heard a few door slams from when we worked together.
Amen. Yeah.
I've heard how it pops off, but well,
It's kind of a gift to be able to see, like, you can have a client describing to you how it is at home.
yeah.
But when you bring home into the therapy room, it's like you really get a good sense of like, this is what it looks like. And even if they fight in the room, it's actually good to see because then you can
Mhm.
see what the process looks like. And then the next time you meet with them, like try to interrupt that. So they're
Yeah.
not fighting in the same way that they're used to fighting in. But oh yeah, it can definitely go off.
Well, tell me a little about what grad school was like for you.
Yeah, I'm like, oh gosh, so hard to remember. It felt like so long ago, but not at the same
Yeah.
time. But I went to school in Northern Virginia and my program was 3 years long.
Okay.
And looking back at it, like I think some programs are like around 2 years and then
Mhm.
three might be the max for grad school. I really am thankful I picked a 3-year program. Everyone's a little bit different with this too, by the way, but I liked that the program had us do self with a therapist work for 1 whole year. So
Mm,
before we even stepped foot into an office with a client, we worked on ourselves.
wow.
So in that process too, we were learning about different theories and modalities, but like we were doing a lot of our own work. So when I stepped into, my first appointment, I really had a good sense of like, okay, this is some kind of transference and I kind of know why. Like I know where this is coming from, but I am so thankful my program did it that way. And also it kind of helped ease us in very
Yeah.
slowly to the process of like sitting with a client. And I remember one of my first supervisors was like, it was our first clinical night ever. And he was like, all right, the goal for tonight is just not to throw up. Don't throw up. And he's like, not in front of your client. He was like, you can go throw up at the back in the bathroom when you're feeling nervous. But he was like, I just want you to feel comfortable enough to be with a client for a couple of minutes without throwing up. And we're like, okay, we can do that. Like
Also,
timidly. Yeah, like, oh, luckily did not throw up, no accidents, which was great. But I really liked that about my program. And then my program was unique in that I think it's either the only program in Virginia or one of the few now that had a one-way mirror.
oh,
That meant that we sat in a room with our client, and then kind of on this side is this one-way mirror. And it was like a love-hate relationship with that mirror. There are some days I go in dreading seeing that mirror. And other days that I was super thankful to know that I had a supervisor behind the one-way mirror watching my appointment.
yeah.
And on some nights, if other people's clients had canceled, they would also be behind the one-way mirror watching my
Oh,
appointment. So I had a supervisor, classmates, and even though that can be really intimidating, knowing you're being watched and kind of
mhm.
feeling like you're performing in a way, I remember leaving my appointments and going straight back behind the one-way mirror and talking to a supervisor, and they were just so good at kind of seeing what maybe I had missed or just giving
Mhm.
alternate perspectives. Because I think when you're in the room with a client, you get so zoomed in.
Especially when you're new. You're like, "Am I saying the right thing?" Like, you're trying to listen to
Right.
what they're saying, but make sure you're saying the right thing, and it's, like, terrifying. So
Mildly, yeah. Moderately. Yeah, so you're just so kind of zoomed in the process of like, don't throw up, don't throw up. Like, I may want to make sure I'm doing this right. Am I nodding my head enough?
Yeah.
Am I nodding my head too much? It's like so many questions kind of like circulating. So I just really appreciated being able to step back behind that mirror and having a supervisor who was like, huh, like, have you thought about this for next time? Or, are you open to trying this CBT intervention the next time you meet with this client? Or do you think this cultural piece or aspect is impacting, maybe like the dynamic in the room? I was like, whoa, hadn't thought of that. Really helpful.
Yeah.
So that was another unique component of the program. And then in addition to that, before every clinic, we did 1 hour of case planning. So
Oh,
we did that with our supervisor and we did that with our like cohort on our clinic night. So it was a lot of time like zooming into like each appointment, like, what are the larger goals, but kind of today, like how can we take a smaller step towards that goal?
wow.
And again, just so many different perspectives. So in my program, I don't know how many professors we had total, but everyone's experience was so different. And I'm sure it felt that way for you too in your
Mhm.
program. Every professor had something different to bring. So we had a professor that was like specialized in DBT and he loved DBT.
Oh, wow.
And then we had another professor that loved IFS. So like that was her jam. And then another one that worked only with like children and did play therapy. So I'm really thankful grad school exposed me to just everything, like every modality.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like for those listening, just so this feels normal, you kind of feel half baked leaving grad school. And I think you've referenced it like that before. Like you get all this exposure to like all these different modalities and theories, but it's only so much because
Mhm.
they only have so much time.
Right.
So maybe you're taking like one or two classes in like CBT or one or two classes in IFS, but that's really nothing in the grand scheme of things. So if you leave grad school feeling like, I don't know what I'm doing, like that's normal. Just
Absolutely.
that's normal. And even that's normal to still have that question or that feeling like now, like years later post grad school, that can
Yeah.
like that's okay.
True, because there's people we work with people. So there's always gonna be somebody that comes in. It's almost like just when you're feeling really confident, like, all right, I got this. That
Yep.
somebody comes in and you're like, I don't got this. Like, I don't know. Like, I've got to research this. I've got to figure something out. I got to know if I'm the right therapist or like this tactic I normally use isn't working. So you have to learn how to be really adaptable. And I think sometimes in the beginning when you first graduate, you're not necessarily trying to be adaptable. You're just trying to survive. You're just like, I just want to do the right things in the right way. And so there's definitely a learning curve as you graduate. So tell me a little bit about what that experience was like for you after
Ooh,
graduation.
yeah, definitely the learning curve, like you said. So I felt like I left half baked. And like you said, like that was also your experience. So we could
Yeah.
assume many other people's experiences as well.
Right.
So post grad school, it's kind of on you and then the supervisor that you choose to work with to decide like where you want to further your training.
Hmm.
So I definitely recommend that because again, like you're not meant to leave grad school being married to one modality. So that was the thing too about our program. Like they did not want us to get married to one modality. And what I mean by that is like, say I'm only going to use CBT with a client or I'm
Mm.
only going to do IFS. They were like, try everything and kind of
Yeah.
see what fits. And I really credit them to kind of my eccentric approach where I'm just like a little bit of everything.
That's better though,
um,
because again, that adaptability. So I think some people feel a big pressure to, especially if you're in like some of those Facebook groups and stuff where somebody's like, I'm a CBT specialist and I'm certified in this. You kind of feel like, oh, well, do I need the certification to be good at it? And, it's nice to know, like you said, different people are going to have, especially if you're working with multiple people in the same room,
mhm.
two different people, a family is probably going to need different tactics depending on what speaks to them.
Yeah.
So it's really good to have like a broad scope of things and then you kind of narrow down what works best for you ultimately.
And like you said, like you're going to run into so many trainings like post grad school. So you're
Yeah.
going to well, you probably get them too, like little flyers in the mail,
Oh my
right?
God, 100.
But no, it's almost like it's like, all right, you're like clogging my mailbox. Like I got so many of these, but it's like a new conference like every week, and like they're
Mhm.
all going to sound amazing, and they're all going to sound like something you need to do because, like
Yep.
you said, like you're going to go on different groups online or talk to your friends, and you're feeling like, oh no, like everyone's really specializing in this or getting certified in that. I must have to do that too. But I definitely encourage you all to maybe like zoom in on like 1 to 3 like different modalities that you tend to organically use yourself. So
Mhm.
it's not that a supervisor is telling you to use it, it's what you kind of feel like fits your personality as a human being. And then go from there and then look at those trainings. Because again, you're going to get everything in the mail, but and it's all going to sound great. And then when you see how much it is, you're like, okay, maybe not. But
Especially some of the certification ones. You'd be like, yeah, I don't really have $1,000 right now to throw to this, but
like, to be continued. But yeah, post grad school, that period is just, I think it's such a relief coming off of grad school. I
Mhm.
mean, I will tell everyone, I can't say in all cases that you will ever work as hard as you did in school. I
Mhm.
mean, I don't know if you remember, like, just we started our days at like 8 a.m. for classes, and then we were there until 9 p.m. seeing clients
Oh
every
gosh.
day. And so that type of schedule is just not sustainable. And luckily, it's not something you should have to do post grad school. So post grad school, you're probably coming off of this, like you said, I survived. Oh my gosh. And your body's kind of taking this like huge, like, I did it. And then it's like, oh my gosh, what's next? Kind of like, what's the next goal? And that's licensure. And so again, kind of feeling like pressure of, do I need to like get all my shit together before I'm
Mhm.
licensed? I'm just here to say, you know, you can be
Yeah.
licensed, but not have your shit together. So
And be in the field 20 years and still not have it together. There's a range of
that's the 20
messiness.
years. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what about, some of the jobs you had, especially, like, your first one, like, when you're, like, earning your hours and stuff like that, like, how did that go for you?
I guess I'll go, like you said, like kind of chronologically.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so in grad school, we had the chance to work, like we saw clients at our school, and then we had an offsite where we also saw clients. They want us just to have like as much exposure to like different agencies or nonprofits and just how they kind of worked. So I ended up staying with the place I did my offsite at in grad school, post grad, and I'm going to shout them out because they were fabulous. But the Women's Center in Northern Virginia, and they specialize in working with survivors of DV and sexual
Mm.
assault. And the biggest, I think, appeal of working at a nonprofit is just their mission. So I still think back to my time there, and I was like, you cannot beat how many services they all have in one house. So
Wow.
in one building, we had free or reduced counseling for survivors of sexual assault and DV. We had free financial advising for them too, because often as people are leaving those DV relationships, finances can be a big factor that keeps them from being able to leave on their own. That was all in house. We had workshops that were offered for free,
Wow.
housing resources, clothing. I mean, everything was in one building. And so that was something I really enjoyed about working at a nonprofit, just the mission, everything being there in house, not kind
Mhm.
of, oh my gosh, where do I send this person? So we're, in therapy, working on the relationship, but there's food scarcity.
Mm.
How are we supposed to work on the relationship when they're worried about, whether or not they're going to eat that night? So in house, it was cool just to have like, oh, I will refer you to this person that's already here.
So many resources.
Um, oh my gosh, so many. But I definitely, that was the best part of working there. And then kind of like on the other hand, because like, the population was high risk and really risky situations with DV, sexual assault, a lot of people were in crisis. And
Mm.
so, understandably, you want to connect them with all the resources, like put out all the fires before you can really do the therapy with them
Mhm.
as a counselor, unless you really feel passionate about crisis counseling and you feel like that's something you can manage pretty effectively, that's great. But if you feel like you might struggle with that, it could be a struggle. So I know those of us that work there, we had a great support system of therapists that work there. We all kind of check in on each other, like, how are you doing this week? What do you need? What can I do for you? What can we do for each other? But that's definitely something just to be aware of, like managing that burnout, not just at a nonprofit, just in this profession in general.
Absolutely.
Since
And
it's an
having those support system.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, that's the best thing about working too, like kind of in a group setting. It's
Mhm.
like just having those people like that you're passing by, in the office, they can be like, pulse check, how are you? How are you?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, but yeah, so that was my experience there at the nonprofit. And then I went on to a few different group private practices.
Mhm.
And I have to say, the best thing about working at a group private practice is if you aren't quite ready to go on your own, or that's not even something that you have in mind for yourself, they provide this like really nice kind of umbrella of their name, right? And so, depending on where you're working, they're probably doing a little bit of marketing for you, maybe some of your admin, scheduling your clients. And when you're kind of fresh into the field, it's just nice to be able to give those responsibilities up to someone else. And they also usually have policies like around like a late cancel or no show fee. And
Mhm.
I remember being so nervous, like upholding those boundaries around those fees. So it
Yeah.
was nice to have something to lean back on of saying, well, the practice has a no show fee or the practice
Right.
has a late cancel
Don't
fee.
blame me. It's not me, it's them.
Yeah. Don't be mad at me.
Exactly.
But
My
it's
favorite.
a nice start. It like helps you, I think, to get more comfortable in like setting the boundary for yourself.
And talking about money too, because it sounds like where you worked before, there wasn't really a need to talk about money with you, like
Mhm.
paying you
Right. There was
directly.
separation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're kind of doing it all on your own, like that, just adds a new element to the
Mhm.
therapeutic relationship, which can be a little awkward and clunky, I think, in the beginning.
Yeah.
And like you, like kind of going back to grad school, that might not have been something you learned to do in grad school, which is
Mhm.
like collect a fee or talk about a cancellation policy or a no-show fee. I don't think we even had those, which made sense, but it's just brand new. So I think a group private practice can be helpful in a sense that like you're under their name, you're under their
Mhm.
reputation, and you're under their policies.
Yeah.
And I think simultaneously, it's interesting. I feel like a lot of my pros are also my cons of working in certain situations.
Mhm.
So, if you're wanting more independence than that, that would be a con of a group private practice because you are under all their stuff. So it's like their brand, it's their marketing, it's their vision, and not really yours, their policies that you may or may not agree with and not
Right.
yours. Um, so fast forward to present day, obviously now I'm doing my own private practice like you are online.
Woo-hoo.
No regrets, sincerely, because the biggest pro has been it's like it's mine, like it's my baby, like it's my brand, it's the colors I like, it's the policies I feel really passionate about. I know my clients uniquely, so if someone's sick, I feel
Mhm.
comfortable waiving a fee because I know them and I don't feel pressure from some larger organization I need to make the charge because the
Mhm.
money is needed there. But that's been the biggest pro of doing this on my own, kind of solo private practice is like, it's all mine. And
Yeah.
the con, it's all mine.
Right. Like you got to figure everything out on your own. And this is stuff that is typically not taught in grad school. So
Right.
it's a combination of like the real life experience, like you were saying, working at different places and kind of, I don't know if it was like this for you, but it's like each place you work, you pull a little bit of a piece of like, here's my full, like finalized therapist identity, where you're like, okay, I like this population. The crisis work's really heavy for me. Not
Yeah.
sure I can do that long term. And I really like working in this type of setting or these types of hours I work best. And you kind of like, I call it like the Goldilocks method, where you're like, that's too hot, that's too cold. It takes you a while to find like what's just
Yeah.
right for you. So it's been a few years since you've graduated. So it's taken that time to really fully develop what your vision is for not only work, but for yourself as a therapist and then your personal life and finding that balance. So I just don't want people to feel pressured right out of school when it's like it literally takes years to find
Yeah.
that.
And like you said, like at least like whatever experience you have post grad, you're getting something from it.
Yeah.
So even if you feel like, ooh, that ultimately wasn't a fit for me, how
Mhm.
could you have known if you didn't do it? Right. So it's
Yeah.
like that's what you gain from the experience is like, ooh, I think I would rather work at a nonprofit or be in a group private practice. But definitely being on your own, like you said, just having all that responsibility, but where you're kind of learning how to run things is from your prior experience. So you're
Mhm.
seeing too, like how all these places are running their business and how they're working with their clients, and you begin to kind of pull like that really would work for me too, or I don't know if I like align with that. So maybe that's something I wouldn't do in my own practice.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I'm so grateful it brought me to this point because even though it's all my own. I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, if you're trying to maintain some semblance of a work life balance, you should be able to do that at any of these other settings.
Mhm.
Aren't that might be kind of a reason for a pause to kind of reflect on is this then the right place for me? But with your own private practice, you're your own boss. So it's like, you got to sign off on your own PTO.
Yeah.
You're not gonna prove it for yourself. So that's been the biggest perk too, is like having more of a work-life balance.
And that's a dog at my house. Sorry, guys.
Like, oh,
Um, well, earlier you mentioned trainings, right? So in this process of working in different places, figuring out more about like who you are, what you want to learn more about, what trainings have you had or books you've read or things along the way that have been like really helpful for you to get to this point?
that's a good question because again, I feel like you're bombarded with trainings
Wow.
post grad, and then again, you feel like the urgency to do them all. Just like a side note for everyone, this is just my perspective, so just one. So definitely keep in mind if this won't be a fit for you, totally fair. But I definitely recommend everyone, even if you're not going to work with a single couple or family, because they can be a little scary. I recommend everyone does some type of training in it
Mm,
just to kind of get background again on like the system of a couple or a relationship and like a system, the larger system of a family, knowing that your individual client is a part of all these different systems. And then a
mm,
larger macro system too, which is, based on gender, SES, all those things. And my favorite ones for couples therapy, it's like kind of like the hub of couples therapy. It's called EFT. So
mm.
that's the primary modality that's used with couples. And then the hub of that training is called ICE-EFT.
Okay.
Another fancy acronym. There's so many in this field.
What does it stand for? What's EFT stand for? Because I know there's two different types. There's
Good
like
question.
there are types, the tapping one, and then there's the couples one.
Yep, good question. I'm glad you didn't ask me about the ICE part because I have no idea.
No, I was like, that's too many letters. We'll stick to three.
EFT, I do know, but IC, I have no idea. So if any of you figured it out, let me know. But
Google it, people.
yeah, Google it, let us know. But EFT stands for emotionally focused therapy. And you're right, there's another EFT that stands for like a tapping type therapy that I don't know anything about, so I won't speak more on it.
Yeah.
But emotionally focused therapy is usually one of the modalities you'll use in working with couples.
Okay.
And the founder of that is the glorious Miss Susan Johnson. She's this
Mm.
wonderful British lady, the best accent, and it's all about like kind of unmet attachment needs
Okay.
that are formulated when you're young and that we end up bringing with us into like our romantic relationships and then our friendships and in our work dynamics. But she sees everything, Susan sees everything as kind of like a cycle, so, or a dance as she calls it. So each couple, each coworker, boss, each friend is in like a little dance together.
Mm.
So each one then contributes to the dance. And if it's a little bit of like a chaotic dance, that means each member can take away from that and make it more of a smooth kind of rumba or mumba, whatever.
Huh.
Mumba number five, I don't know. But I highly recommend that training for couples therapy. That and family systems would be good to get just some training in, again, just to kind of see how families work.
Mm.
So we're sitting with one client, but they're talking about their families, and we're wondering, well, I wonder where they learned all these messages about food from. Like,
Mm.
where does that come from? And then when you do like a family genogram, which is like a fancy word for a family diagram, with them, you see, oh, well, mom talked about food in this way. And then, in dad's family, like food was scarce. And so, like, I wonder if this plays a part in my client's life and how they feel and how they talk about food.
Mm.
So it just helps you kind of broaden out to, what patterns and traditions were being trickled down throughout the family. And then even more uniquely too, like in your client's family, like what role did they play? So at what time were they born? What was going on in the family system when they were born?
Mhm.
What sibling position are they? I mean, we all
Mm.
know like the stereotypical like oldest sibling, youngest sibling, kind of,
Yeah.
oldest has a lot of responsibility. Yeah, youngest
Present.
sibling. Or like, kind of able to kind of follow along, go with the
Yeah.
flow. They say creative. I don't really know about that part, but I just think even if you're not going to work directly with a couple or family, which to each his own, decide if that's something you want to do, just having the framework of what goes on
Mhm.
family systems and what goes on in, romantic relationships is like crucial. So I know I'm adding it to like a long list for people, but I would throw that in. So
Yeah.
for family systems trainings, this is for marriage and family therapists, but you can go through the AAMFT. So it's
Okay.
the Association of Marriage and Family Therapists, another acronym.
There's so many.
So many, and it never ends. But that's a place to have, or a place to look for family systems training. So I definitely recommend them. And then the ICE-EFT for
Mhm.
emotionally focused couples therapy. And again, don't know what that stands for.
It's
Good
a
luck.
training to help couples, but I think you make a good point though, because even for somebody like me who has not really done couples therapy, I've had like partners in sessions, or I've had like family members at times in sessions. It's still, even for the ones that are individual, they're still coming in almost like, I don't know, 90% of the time with an issue related to somebody in their friend group,
Yeah.
somebody they're dating, somebody in their family. So even if like the whole system's not there, it might help you as an individual therapist learn about how to help them understand like the bigger picture of what's going on.
Mhm. In a way too that, like you said, you're not getting kind of like kind of sucked into like that one perspective, but you're like, this
Mhm.
makes sense in this context. And like considering that you're the oldest sibling, your family might have put more of a pressure on you to perform in this way. And I wonder if that fits your experience. But yeah, I think it's nice to have that kind of like conceptualization. It's a
Yeah.
way of like looking at things almost like slightly removed. So like our clients can be like a bit of like an outside observer on like their family process
Mhm.
and
So they
maybe be
might
able
see.
to see it in the way that we see it, right?
Yeah.
From the outside.
Nice. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And like you said, there's so many trainings out here. So it's nice,
So
to
many.
have your perspective too, because we have different degrees, different licenses. So kind of what has helped you with the populations you work with. I think that that's helpful. Um, so for my final question, kind of summarizing like your entire career so far, what do you think or what do you wish that you had known earlier in your career, or what advice or suggestions would you give to kind of the new therapist coming in?
Oh, so many.
Like, they didn't really teach a
Oh
whole lot about the practical stuff in grad school, so I could write a
my
book.
gosh. I know. I don't even know where to start because there's so many things I wish I had known. Again, I feel like I left half baked, which is normal. And I'm so appreciative of that experience. But I think too in the field, this is a changing, I believe,
Mhm.
like as time goes on. But I think all of us had certain like limiting beliefs of what being a therapist entails.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you heard this, but like a big one we heard was like, you don't make money as a therapist.
Ugh, yeah, terrible, terrible marketing for them as a
No,
program sending out therapists. You wanna be like,
yes,
Can you tell me, like, how much money, and should I leave right now?"
right. Yeah. And that's
So
healthy
dumb.
to like have those conversations around money.
Yes.
How much can I expect to make post grad school? How much
Yeah.
can I expect to make as a licensed therapist? If
Mhm.
you feel like you're working somewhere where you can't ask those questions again, like just a reason for a pause, like just to
Yeah.
pause and think like, is this going to be a good fit for me? But just know you are allowed to ask those questions.
Mhm.
And even more so now, I mean, in the news, social media, celebrity kind of influence, we're seeing how important mental health is.
Yes.
We've known all along, and everyone watching this probably has known all along how important mental health is. And I feel like more so now, kind of the world around us is catching on.
Mhm.
And so, as we're seeing that influence, that is a reminder that what we are doing is valuable. What we're doing is really important. So, therefore, what we are doing being so valuable and important, you should be compensated accordingly for it. So that's
Absolutely.
a big one for me is like maybe I can just kind of clear up some like misconceptions that I came out with, like not, like from grad school and kind of post grad experience, but you can make money as a therapist. I'm here to tell you that.
Yes.
Another thing I would say, another like limiting belief of being a therapist that I at least had was that you have to pay your dues.
Mhm.
So when it comes to where you're working, kind of the client population that you're working with, the hours that you're working, and again, I'm here to say, like, if you're not in a space where you feel like you can advocate for yourself, might be a reason again to reflect and wonder, like, is this going to be the best fit for me? But you do not, there's no one trajectory for being a therapist. Like, it's not that you have to work at an agency and then you do group private practice, that you have to do one or the other. You can be fresh out of graduate school and decide, I want to do a group private practice. And I'm like, go do your thing. Like, great,
Yeah.
we need more of you. Like, that's wonderful. And I know you talked about this before, but if it feels any other way, I think it's because it's coming from a scarcity mindset
Mhm.
of, ooh, there's not enough clients to go around. And, therefore we can't have any competition in our practice with a resident or a supervisee. And that's bullshit. Like, we
Absolutely.
need all the help we can get in this field. Like, the more therapists, the merrier. So,
Right, especially like you
come
said with
on in.
trainings.
Yeah.
Like if I'm seeing something, I'm like, I don't have the training in this. Like I would refer them to you if I knew that you'd be a better fit. Like there needs to be this level of teamwork. And I think there's just in some, whether it's some programs, it's some people, it's some personalities, experiences, whatever it is, some people just don't have that. And you're going to need that. There's no way you can know everything. Doesn't even matter how many trainings you've had. You're not going to know it all. So, and you're not going to be the best fit for every client. So you're right. Build a community.
Yeah, you're leading into like the next like kind of misconception is that you have to be the best fit for every client.
Mhm.
Like, again, I'm here to say, no, you do not have to be like, I remember in grad school, like probably like your experience too, you work with everyone.
Yes, no one ever told me that, by the way, ever said, "You will not be the best fit," even in almost every place I've
Yes.
worked.
Yeah.
No one ever told me that.
I don't think I ever got that either. Now that I'm thinking about it. And like, no, like kind of post grad, like training, or there was always like, oh, you could take another training or do more research and that will make you the best fit for that client,
Yeah.
or kind of override like your safety concerns with the client and that will make you a best fit. And it's like, oh, so yeah, we are here to tell you like you do not have to be a good fit
Mm-mm.
for everyone. I mean,
No.
if you think about that, that's impossible. And if you think about that, there's something wrong with that. You should not be a good fit for everyone.
No, there's
Like
no
how
way.
it's like everyone is like chocolate ice cream. I mean, I do, but it's not a good fit for
I
everyone.
don't. So
There you go.
not a chocolate fan. So
Right?
yeah,
It's not for everyone.
perfect example.
But it's out there because there are people that consume chocolate ice cream and love it,
Yes.
right? Some people like it, not everyone likes that. Same
Mhm.
thing in our field. Like you
Yeah.
will work with clients and really kind of, I would encourage you all to kind of tune in to when you most feel like yourself as a therapist with your
Mhm.
client. And I would kind of jump to say, like, that's going to be someone you're going to love working with, kind of like in a broader perspective. So if it's like young adults who are, transitioning into college or couples that are, premarital, right? But really tune into how do I feel with this person in the room? So do I dread these appointments? Am I excited about them? Do I feel like I can be myself? So I can like curse and laugh and
Mhm.
not sit all properly and can I do that with this client? And again, I think that's probably someone you want to keep working with. So I definitely encourage everyone to work with people that you feel like you're the best fit for and know that it's okay not to be the best fit for everyone.
Right. It doesn't say anything bad about you as a therapist. It's just, so you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And if you, sometimes the best thing you could do for a client is to refer them out. That is the best care.
And the thing with our field too, like it feels like we need more. Like we need more therapists, right? But
Yes.
there are a lot of us. There are a good amount of therapists out there. So
Mhm.
it's like, someone like I work with couples and families, someone else might not like want to do that, and that's okay, but they can refer to someone like me. And I don't work with kids, but I know I've got some great people to refer to
Mhm.
kids to. So I just know, like you said, there's someone out there that's going to be a great fit. But that was definitely like a misconception I had from grad school. And then this idea that you can't change your preference, like you can't change
Mhm.
your specialty or, who you love working with. I think who you love working with really changes depending on where you're at in your own kind of stage of life.
Yeah, true.
And so I have this fear that as I'm getting older, I'll be less relevant for like teens.
Oh, yeah,
And
me too. I want to be cool still.
I know, and I'm like, TikTok, I don't have it. Like, oh no, like I can't keep up. But but like at some point, like when I was younger, it was like, yeah, we were like kind of on the same page. I could keep up with like the references
Yeah,
and I was
same.
watching the same things that they were. So it was like easy conversation. And I still love working with teens. And as I get older, I notice I'm like, oh, I don't know the reference or
Right.
so crap. Like, how do I keep up? So just know that you also get to change,
Mm.
who you love working with and that that's normal. Like that can change based on what stage of life you're in. And then also too, if you've been working with one population for a long time and you're feeling like at this point in my life, I'm feeling burnt out from working with
Mhm.
this population, you have every right to look into, maybe I would enjoy working with someone else a little bit better. So I worked with a ton of couples and families like in grad school and post grad, and I still love working with them. And what I love even more is working with an individual on their
Mhm.
relationship. So I love being able to kind of help them understand their position and their relationship and help in that way. So it's like your training can still help you even if you pivot and work with like a different demographic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just those are kind of the few like misconceptions I think I had about being a therapist. And then like the last one is that burnout is not sexy. It's not.
Oh, no, it's not a badge of honor or something that some people wear it that way.
And like it's almost like the expectation, like, oh, I worked a 12-hour day today. I'm so exhausted. It's like, why? Like,
That's so
feel like
cool.
you have to work a 12-hour day. And again, if it's the agency you're working at
Mm,
or the
red
boss
flag.
that you have, red flag, right? Like again, like a reason to think, is this going to be a good fit for me? Because again, I promise you, it should not be as hard as it was in grad school. The
Mhm.
schedules of working a 12-hour day, being in class, working a few different jobs, it should not be that hard. So if you're feeling burnt out, you definitely have permission to, again, reflect and look at how can I make my environment a better fit? And then if you feel comfortable and safe working in the place that you're in, talk to them about it. So talk to
Mhm.
your supervisor about the balance, talk to your boss about the balance, and see what they're willing to do. Because they might not know that you're feeling a little kind of
Yeah.
toasty. And so you want to let them know that you're feeling on that, spectrum of burnt out, like rather toasty. And maybe there's something they can do about it. But it's not sexy. And like you said, it's not the norm.
No.
So just
No.
here to clean it up too.
Yeah, and if the supervisor or the agency or whoever else is not being supportive of that, major red flag. So,
Yes. Mhm.
even if there's things that may be uncomfortable, like uncomfortable conversations you have to have, or there's even just like the entire dynamic of it's that power dynamic of going in and being able to one admit that you're struggling, but also like hope that this person in this place of power will do something about it. Like you absolutely need as much support as possible and also to be honest because you can't expect clients to come to you and be really honest when we're not necessarily being always being honest with ourselves or
Right.
our place of work, employers, whatever.
Mhm.
So,
Kind of like practice what you preach. So if you're
yes.
telling your clients in and out, like day in
Self-care.
and day out, it's self-care, right? Then where is that for you?
Yeah.
And this idea that self-care is selfish, like I'd love to x-nay that too. Like it's not actually in this profession, it's like fundamental to be able to do
Mhm.
what we do. So take good care of yourselves, and in doing that you can make good money. You
Yes.
can work with the clients you love working with, and you can have kind of great support all around you. But those are the things I wish I had known post grad school and in
Yeah.
grad school.
Oh, seriously, yeah, because I don't think any of those things were talked about in my program or internships or anything,
No,
actually. So, but that's the point of this.
I
It's like,
know, right? We'll give you the tea.
yeah. There's like no reason to like gatekeep info on this. Like you said, like we're always going to need therapists. There's going to be people that are going to come in this field that work with different populations, similar populations, because we're going to be full. We're going to need people to refer to. So, it's nice to be so open and honest. So I appreciate you for being willing to come in and talk about your experiences and give a different perspective on therapist life.
Yeah, just know, like, I feel like we have, even if you watch like TV shows and movies, like we have this like one depiction of what a therapist looks like.
Hmm.
I hate how we're depicted on TVs and
I
movies because it's always
know.
like weird, like, and someone's like laying on a couch. I'm like, no one does that anymore. So I think we all have this like one model of what we think a therapist should be and how they should look.
Hmm.
And so again, just here to say like be you in your appointments. So if it's like cursing or casual or laughing about
Joking.
the TV show, yeah, with a
Mhm.
client, it's like do that.
Yeah.
So you're getting again like you're getting modeling from everyone around you of what it can look like, but just be you.
Yep, that's the best advice, and that's something that's also not taught, especially when it's like cookie cutter. Here's this theory that somebody made 200 years ago. Like,
Old
we
man.
don't fit that. Technology's advanced, like everything's changed. So we have to learn how to change and be flexible too. And I think you're right. Ultimately, we have to prioritize ourselves. So we can do that and then start as you grow, narrowing in to exactly what it is that you want to look like as a therapist, where you want to work, how you want to live, and go from there. But
Can be good, I promise you it can.
yes, we're
Yeah.
on the other side now and we're still learning and figuring stuff out. So, like, it's always a growing process, but it's like you gotta grow. If you're not growing, then what are you doing? That's boring. Like, things are changing. You got to adapt. So,
Get comfortable with the discomfort, I promise you, but
exactly.
it shouldn't feel like you're just merely surviving. That will change.
Mhm.
That should change.
Right. Because we need everybody in the field. Like you said, we need a lot of new therapists. So, if everybody's burning out in grad school or in your first job after, then we're going to lose a lot more people than we're gaining. So, follow some of these tips. But well, thank you for being a guest on the Keys to Therapy. I appreciate you. And
No
so if
problem.
any yeah, well, if any clients want to follow you, follow your pages, anything else, I'll have linked everything below so they can kind of, check out your website, which is awesome, by the way, and look at your social media, kind of see what you're up to. But I really appreciate being open about your experiences, being willing to help some of the new therapists out here, and just thank you for your time.
Yeah, I wish I had had this resource as a new therapist myself. So I'm definitely happy to, again, just to be open and honest about what this looks like. And then if you have any other questions, feel free to direct them to Sam, direct them to me. You'll know
Yeah.
how to find me from those links. But yeah, I'm here to tell it how it is straight up.
Yeah, perfect. And I know there's going to be lots of other topics and stuff we're covering, so I'm sure we'll have you on here again to be able to kind of dig in deep to this field and expose all the shady stuff and
Love doing that.
highlight the positives for balance. But well, thank you again. Bye, everybody.